people over there who have been made orphans because of the civil war that's been taking place in southern Sudan and northern Uganda. He's going with this group, Teen Mission, that he'll be there for, gone for 7 weeks total in Africa for 5 weeks, working with these orphans. And he's going over there, and as we were discussing the opportunity for him to go over, you know, I was excited about it because I thought this is a great opportunity for him to go over and to share his faith with other people. They're going to be doing puppet shows, and they're going to be doing a whole bunch of other things that they're doing over there, working with these kids. And I said, I like that. They're going to be doing a lot of construction for the orphanage and some other things that he'll be able to do. And I said, I like that aspect. I think it's great for a 17, 16, almost 17-year-old kid. It's not 12 like it says in the bio, in case you're thinking he's a real big 12-year-old here. Almost 17. I said, you know, I think it's good for a kid to sit out in the desert for 4 or 5 weeks and to kind of evaluate who he is and what his priorities are. But one of the other things that I really like about this trip for him is that it's an opportunity for young people to understand what we have that other people long for. Why is it that we need to build borders around America? It's not because we're trying to keep people in, it's because people are doing whatever they can to get into our country because of this thing that we call freedom. This freedom, and I'm excited for him to be able to go over there and to see what would it have been like if I had been born in southern Sudan. And to work with these kids who have lost their parents because of their mom and dad's political affiliation. To work with these kids because they lost their mom and dad because of a religious belief that they have. And now suddenly they're orphans. And they're working with these orphans because the new dictator who's coming into, or not a dictator yet, but there's a guy there who's trying to take a lot of these kids. They're called the invisible children. It's made its way around the internet quite a bit. But they're trying to take these kids and to make them into young soldiers to fight for his cause. And so he's got an opportunity to do that. But I'm so excited about that for him because it will give him a perspective on, okay, this is America. I should give him a free advertisement. He's looking to raise money too, so if you want to support him, there's your commercial. Dan is coming down all the way with me here today. But I think it's good for young people to be able to see how much this thing called freedom means to other people and to not take it for granted. You know, I tell people when we went into Iraq, I remember it was a 5-day trip from Kuwait across the border into Iraq to the middle of Baghdad. We were up in the very, very northern part then. And as soon as we would go into these places, they told us, they said, don't start throwing water and food out your window. You're going to see people out there begging. And to drive along and to see young children along the side of the road, 4 and 5 years old, out there begging for food. It's incomprehensible to those of us here in America where we have free lunch programs and free breakfast programs and free everything. That concept is unimaginable to us. And to see these kids out there, and when you throw a bottle of water out the window, to see them begin wrestling each other literally for a bottle of water. I mean, they don't care about the iPods or the iPhones or all the other gadgets and gizmos that kids have today. Their greatest desire is to have a bottle of water, to have something to eat, to have some food on their table. When we went into some of these towns and villages over there, I remember one day in particular, going into this town and very quickly being surrounded by about 40 or 50 Iraqi men who all came up to me and they kind of surrounded us and they were coming up to us and saying, "Thank you for my freedom. Thank you for my freedom." And we would go into these places, and at one point I remember the kids coming up to us asking for our autographs. I think, you're asking me for my autograph? And they didn't have paper, they didn't have pens, so we took pens out of our pocket. They didn't have paper, so these kids literally were rolling up their sleeves saying, "Autograph, autograph." Because to a young Iraqi Kurdish child who grew up in a country that had no freedom, that grew up in a country where perhaps he witnessed his mom and dad butchered by Saddam Hussein because he was Kurdish, not Shiite or Sunni or whatever political affiliation or tribal affiliation or religious affiliation, that he was the wrong one. And as such, he watched his parents get killed or he watched his village wiped out. At one point we were driving along And we had a guide with us, and he pointed to a cemetery on the side of a hill, and he says, most of the end dates on those gravestones are all the same day. Meaning, Saddam Hussein had come in and just wiped out a village, and they all died on the same day and buried in that cemetery. But these kids would say, autograph, autograph. Because to a young Iraqi child, their hero was not some basketball player or football player or some Disney star or movie star. Their hero, the hero to a young Iraqi Kurdish child who grew up in that environment, was the American soldier who brought him freedom. I'm going to tell you, I'm excited to see so many young people here today, one of which is mine, and a few others at my table, and some more around here today. But let me encourage all of us to understand what a blessing this thing called freedom really is. The last thought I want to leave with you is, what do we do with this information? You know, once we look and we begin to grasp the sacrifices that people have made for freedom, once we really begin to understand what a blessing it is, where do we go from there? What is it that we do? And let me just leave you with this thought, and it's, I actually had it printed up to put up here. Action. Oh, I had that printed up. This ought to motivate us to action. If we come to a breakfast like this, and we sit back and we say, wow, great speech, I liked it, I liked all the speakers that came up, I liked that story, I didn't like this story, and we leave out of here and we do nothing with that, we have accomplished absolutely nothing. There is a war on freedom, and what we need is for every one of us to get involved in this battle. And I'm not talking about a battle that's taking place over in Iraq or Afghanistan. Folks, there is a war on freedom taking place right here in Chester County in Pennsylvania, United States. And we need every one of us to get involved and to take action and to be involved in this type of thing. You see, freedom is under assault. And it's not just under assault by the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or anybody else overseas. Freedom is under assault here in America today. You see, when you take cash out of my wallet and you give it to the guy down the street because he drives a clunker, what you are doing is not just bad economic policy. What you are doing when you do that is you are robbing me of personal freedom. The freedom to go out and to raise money, to pursue happiness, to do all the individual liberty. When you take cash out of my wallet and give it to some guy because he drives a clunker, you are robbing me of freedom. When you take a checkbook, or you take a check out of my checkbook, and you give it to a guy across town because he can't afford to pay his mortgage, you're robbing me of the freedom to pursue the American dream. When you take money out of my wallet and you give it to somebody, to some big business, to some Wall Street executive because you think they're too big to fail. These are all, they're not just bad economic policies. Every one of these is an assault on freedom.